Today we'll be doing something a bit different, taking stock of a lot of the information that we have available to us to make an educated guess as to which Primark's Games Workshop is likely to release next. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the strategy and tactics focused 40k channel where we're all about getting the most out of our miniatures on the battlefield. Now, despite Primarks being in the backstory of Warhammer 40k for literally decades now, they had previously restrained themselves, keeping them as mythical figures from the background, who don't actually turn up to hit things with swords on the tabletop near you. Games Workshop broke that trend when they released the actual model of Magnus the Red for the Thousand Suns a few years ago now. In general, both him and the ones that have come after have been very well received and very popular. I believe that their Mortarion kit was one of the best selling models that they produced for a long time. So in all honesty, I've been quite surprised that they've shown so much restraint in not cranking out a new Primark every single year. It's been a while since Mortarion was released, back near the start of 8th edition when the Death Guard Codex came out, so it seems to me that we're now overdue at least one other Primark release. Now, predicting which one is tricky in that it both depends on what Games Workshop would think would do well, but also to some extent the backstory for Warhammer 40k as to which ones we're likely to see first. Today I thought we'd briefly look through the state of each of all the Primarks in the backstory, talk a bit about how much fans would like to see them with a new model on the table, and make some dangerous predictions as to which ones I think that we might be seeing next. So without further ado, let's take a look. From the First Legion we have Lionel Johnson, the Primark of the Dark Angels, who in terms of Loyalist Primarks is probably the most easy story-wise to bring back, as he's basically been confirmed to be sleeping on the rock, the Dark Angels' last shard of Caliban that they fly around the battlefield, persecuting heretics and fallen with. Supposedly he is waiting for the right moment to lead the forces of the Dark Angels in their darkest hour, but he seems to be a pretty deep sleeper, as they've been in some sticky situations so far, including having the rock invaded by demons, and he hasn't decided to get up. As one of the main Space Marine chapters that's so popular it has its own standalone codex, the Return of the Lion would likely see good reception with fans. He's a pretty iconic character. The only thing that stands against it in my mind is that he might not be enormously different to Guilliman in terms of how he might be used on the tabletop, in terms of war gear and in-game effects. Next we have a nice gap on the rotor, as both the 2nd and 11th Primarks are the ones that famously have had all data expunged from the knowledge of the Imperium about their existence, for whatever reason, whether it was treachery or gene seed deterioration or something. They were long gone before the start of the Horus Heresy. I strongly suspect that we won't see them back anytime soon, as even the existence of that gap is extremely interesting to imagine what could have been, and also lets players come up with their own backstories for certain legions if they wanted to. If we did see Games Workshop fill one of these gaps, I suspect they'd only fill one of them, probably with a major release of a new Marines faction alongside it. While it'd be sad to have this piece of forgotten lore expunged like that, it would give them the possibility to release an entire new Space Marine Legion. I could see them cooking something up like saying that the entire Legion was placed in stasis to come back when a certain galactic threat reared its head. Could be fun. I'd say very, very unlikely to happen anytime soon. Next up we have Fulgrim, the 3rd Primark and the Primark of the Emperor's Children, who is pretty much confirmed to be a great big mutated demon prince of Slanesh, slithering around and murdering things, and indulging in all sorts of disturbing fantasies. I believe that there have been mentions of disturbing, destructive chaos threats that sound very much like Fulgrim mentioned in the Psychic Awakening fluff, and Games Workshop has had a bit of a chaos revival the last few years, first completely redoing the Thousand Suns, then the Death Guard alongside their Primark, so it makes sense that either the Emperor's Children or the World Eaters are next, meaning that there's a very good chance that we might see Fulgrim released alongside a full Emperor's Children army at some point. If I had to guess, then I'd say that Fulgrim is the single most likely Primark to come back next out of this list, certainly from the Chaos side. Next we have Perturabo, the Primark of the Iron Warriors, who's never really gone away in the 40k universe, but he remains an existent demon prince of Chaos Undivided. There's absolutely no reason that we couldn't see him come back, and it would be incredibly cool if he did. I just don't think he has quite as much of a following as Angron and Fulgrim, which is why I don't think we'll be seeing him next on the Chaos side. Next for the Loyalists we have Jagatai Khan, the 5th Primark of the White Scars. He was last seen chasing some Dark Eldar into the Webway after they raided a planet, and has basically not been seen for many thousands of years. The White Scars like to think that he's still out hunting in the Webway, though that seems unlikely after several millennia. No reason he couldn't come back, as his death certainly wasn't ever confirmed, but he's one of the least well-known and well-documented Primarks. and the White Scars aren't quite as popular as a lot of the other Space Marine chapters, at least in terms of numbers of players who play their army. So of the possible Loyalist returners, I think that he'd be quite low down the list. Next we come to Leman Russ of the Space Wolves, who following the Horus Heresy led his personal retinue in a crusade into the Eye of Terror to try and hunt down and kill his treacherous brothers. As he was never confirmed dead, there's no reason that Games Workshop couldn't bring him back again. And as with the Blood Angels and Dark Angels, Space Wolves are one of the chapters that has their own codex and are quite popular. He's certainly a solid contender for coming back, and I suspect he would operate very differently to Guilliman as a miniature on the tabletop. I'm sure he'd be absolutely monstrous in close combat. Next up is Rogor Dawn of the Imperial Fists, who was lost following the Horus Heresy when he was attacking a Chaos fleet, specifically after boarding a Chaos flagship. Again, never confirmed killed, but the Imperial Fists recovered his gauntlet along with his hand inside it, meaning that if he is out there, he is at least one arm down. As with a lot of the Loyalist Primarchs, if he isn't confirmed killed, there's no reason that Games Workshop couldn't bring him back. In 40k, the fluctuations of the warp can have ships turning up millennia after when they departed, which could account for a time delay. The Imperial Fists certainly have a big following, though as a core Codex Marines chapter, I suspect that Lionel Johnson or Leman Russ might come back first, seeing as the core Marines Codex already has a Primarch in Guilliman, but it's certainly not out of the realm of imagination that he could be next. For number 8 we have Conrad Curse of the Night Lords, who was believed killed post-heresy by a Calidus assassin, though unfortunately the kill was never confirmed, as the video log that showed the event mysteriously cuts out just before the kill happens. Can you sense a bit of a theme going on here? With Primarchs that seem to be dead, but never actually 100% definitely. I suspect he certainly wouldn't be next on the list for Chaos Primarchs, seeing as there are plenty that are still alive, actually confirmed alive, and I'd be surprised if he was released before any of those, so they didn't have to explain away that particular bit of backstory. The 9th Primarch is Sanguinius of the Blood Angels, famously killed by Horus at the Siege of Terror, and one of the hardest Primarchs for Games Workshop to retcon the death of, as it's so integral to the Blood Angels story. Because he's so well known as a noble dying hero, I think that he's actually one of the more popular Primarchs, so if Games Workshop ever did release a model of him for any reason, I suspect it to do phenomenally well. I believe his Forge World counterpart model, for 30k, did well as well. I honestly hope that they don't release Sanguinius for 40k though, as it would kill off a large part of the whole identity of the Blood Angels, so I suspect it would probably never happen. Next up we have Ferrus Manus, the 10th Primarch of the Iron Hands, who was killed by Fulgrim at the Isfahan drop site massacre towards the start of the Horus Heresy. As he was decapitated, he's pretty much unequivocally dead, and unlike Sanguinius, we don't even have his Legion's successors having dreams of him and going mad due to visions of him dying. Very, very unlikely to come back in my opinion, though if he ever did, I suspect it would be something sciencey, Iron Hands and disturbing with technology, maybe something cloning related. Next we have the 12th Primarch, Angron of the World Eaters, who is perfectly alive and kicking, and is a brutal demon prince of Khorne. He's been more active than Fulgrim, with a lot more overt records of him showing up and butchering Imperial forces. I suspect that we'll see him whenever we see a World Eaters, Khorne-focused Chaos Space Marine release. So for me, it really depends with him and Fulgrim as to whether they choose to do Emperor's Children or World Eaters and Berserkers first. The 13th Primarch, Robute Guilliman of the Ultramarines, was stabbed in the neck by Fulgrim with a poison blade and kept in stasis, and resurrected by Belisarius Cawl, along with some Eldar help shortly after the fall of Cadia. Probably one of the least likely to come back, seeing as he's already back. Next we have the 14th and 15th Primarchs, Mortarion and Magnus of the Death Guard and Thousand Sons respectively, who we've already seen come up alongside their respective Chaos Codexes. Following on from this, we have Horus himself, the 16th Primarch, of the Lunar Wolves, Sons of Horus, and now Black Legion. His death is kind of central to the entire backstory of 40k. The Emperor's sword both killed him and destroyed his soul, and then even his body was permanently destroyed by Abaddon the Despoiler, who doesn't particularly want the forces of chaos looking backwards to past glories. It's kind of hard to come back from that sort of finality, so I don't think we'll see the War Master anytime soon. Number 17 we have Lorgar of the Wordbearers, quite a popular and well-liked Primarch of the Chaos Marines, particularly in the Horus Heresy novel series. Similar to Perturabo, there's no reason that they couldn't unveil a model of him tomorrow, but I would predict that either Fulgrim or Angron would come first, just as they're Primarchs associated with a specific deity. I suspect that we will see him at some point sooner or later though. Next we have Vulcan of the 18th Legion, the Salamanders, who disappeared in mysterious circumstances after the Horus Heresy, but reappeared literally single-handedly defending a planet against the great orc war boss known only as the Beast. Now in the background, for whatever reason, Vulcan is a perpetual, meaning that when he dies, he just gets right back up again and carries on living. Indeed, he was reported slain many times during the War of the Beast, only to reappear on the front lines, carrying on the fight. The last that was seen of him was when he met the war boss in single combat, slaying him and detonating the temple gargant around him in an enormous explosion. I imagine that was a bit more of a test of his immortality than most normal things, but seeing as from the fluff precedents he's literally been immortal to every attempt to kill him before, there's no reason to really suspect that he died in that explosion. Where he's been after that will be a complete mystery, maybe happily floating through space for a while, or keeping a low profile on some planet in the galaxy. Again, no reason that he could not come back, should Games Workshop want to release a model of him. Number 19, we have Corax of the Raven Guard, who following the Horus Heresy left to hunt down his brother Primarchs once more, and was last seen fighting Lorgar in the midst of the Eye of Terror. It was rumoured that he's been corrupted by chaos somewhat, becoming a strange being of shadows, so it might be interesting to see if he did come back, he might be some sort of loyalist demon prince, if such a thing is possible. With Corax, Vulcan, Dawn and Jagatai Khan, the main thing that I'd say holds them back from being the most likely next choice is that they're all sub-factions within the Space Marine Codex, without any one of them being necessarily a lot more prominent over the others. Finally, we have Alpharius, and possibly Omegon, who was killed by Guilliman himself after the heresy, though in the classic Alpha Legion way, the Imperium is always getting reports of people saying I am Alpharius, claiming to be the possibly dead Primarch. As cool as their backstory is, they're not the most well-known of legions, and their Primarch is reported dead, meaning that I think that they're quite a low choice on the list. So where does that leave us overall then? On the Chaos side of things, I think that Fulgrim is likely going to be next, with Angron being the next one on the list, though I wouldn't be surprised to see that order reversed. It'd be very cool to see an entire Emperor's Children or World Eaters faction codex. I think that both of these are more of a when than if at the moment, due to the success of the Death Guard and the Thousand Sons. For me, the Loyalists are a little bit more tricky, and I'd be a lot less certain as to which one's going to be the exact next one. I strongly suspect either Lionel Johnson or Lehman Russ is most likely to be next, just because they're some of the most iconic characters that have their own Space Marine chapter that Games Workshop have put a lot of effort into releasing individual unique units for. The last time Primarks were released, it was the start of a new edition, and that may or may not follow the same pattern, so they might wait till the start of 9th, whenever that might be. Games Workshop have promised some of the biggest reveals ever at Adepticon this year, and Primarks would certainly fit that kind of bill, it being quite a big deal when another one of them turns up. I'll certainly be watching with interest. Let me know your thoughts and predictions down in the comments below, and please correct me if I've got any of the lore wrong. I have picked up a fair bit over the years, but I'll admit I don't know quite as much about the backstory of the Primarchs as a whole load of people on the internet seem to. If you've enjoyed this, feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics. We have regular 40k tactics related content every single day, including a lot of tactics for Codex Space Marines. If you'd like to support the channel and you live in the UK, I have a link to Element Games down below in the description. If you click that one before buying any Warhammer, a little of the money goes towards Auspex Tactics without costing you any more. So if you are thinking about buying some model soldiers sometime in the future, and we're going to order from a third-party seller, please consider that to help out the channel. Thanks very much for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.